वासुदेवेन्द्र योगेन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानं प्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधोऽभिधीयते। नित्यं शुद्धं निराभासं निराकारं निरञ्जनं नित्यबोधं चिदानन्दं गुरुं ब्रह्मा नमाम्यहम्।
To this portion first. In the model that is presented or accepted by Vedanta, this model is a part of other schools of thoughts, but Vedanta would accept it because it belongs to creation. And to us, in the drishti of Vedantic knowledge, creation is mithya, is to be grasped. The details of creation are only put forward so that so whichever school has presented a good enough a model of creation in Vedanta, it doesn't refute it. In other words, it says it's okay if you think this is the way creation has come. That's all right, we will go along with it. But the tatparyam means the conclusion, the end, will be different from other schools. While the other schools will be putting emphasis in the explanations and reasoning to say why the creation, the way, whatever model they present, that this is real and how Ishwar is different from the model, from creation. Vedanta will say, even if this is how creation has come, even then, and this is the important point, even then, creation remains mithya. Now that is a huge statement Vedanta makes. And to support its statement of creation being mithya means dependent reality. And to support that, it has a special kind of a logic. It has a specific kind of a presentation of information. And that accounts for taking the help of the model and then proving that in that model itself there is ekatvam. And how does it do that? Here we saw that the Maya is the upadhi for Ishvara, and Ishvara is just another term for Brahman with Maya. It doesn't mean that Ishvara is now a separate birth, like how a mother gives birth to a child, and a child thereafterwards is a separate creation. Ishvara is a name. It's just a name, like our best example, my best example is, before marriage you have a maiden name. Some of us now, okay, some of us have a different name after marriage. The person is the same. The same person is addressed by the mother differently, by the friend differently, etc. So with reference to your child, you are called a mother. With reference to your mother, you are called a daughter or a son, etc. So it is keeping in mind a certain peculiarity that this different term is introduced or this different name is given to a very specific condition. And that peculiarity is Maya is the adjunct. Maya is what is introduced to say that Ishwar is Upadhi. Brahman with Maya Upadhi. Brahman by itself is Nirgun. Brahman by itself is changeless. Brahman by itself is the sole support of creation. Brahman by itself is the sole existence principle. Brahman by itself is the soul, S-O-L-E, the soul consciousness principle, knowledge principle. Brahman by itself is primarily the truth. That alone is. There is nothing else. There is no creation from the standpoint of Brahman. If you just see the word Brahman, there is no creation. This statement is being said to someone who is experiencing a realm of reality which we call creation. This statement is said to someone who's already in a state of duality, experience of a duality. You and I are two in our vision. If there is no two, there is no transaction for us. There is no experience for us. The closest we said is our sleep state. In our sleep, there is no two, there is no experience. So Ishwar is Maya, is the Upadhi. Upadhi as in it is that peculiar conjunction, associate, because of which Brahman is now called Ishwar. If I were to Brahman and Ishwar, where is Ishwar? The reference of Ishwar if you remove Maya. There is nothing like Ishwar if you remove Maya. So then the whole idea of Ishwar is keeping Maya as the Upadhi. The same thing happens when we came to Jiva. Who's Jiva? Jiva is the one who is associated with the Sthula Sukshma Sharira. This Sthula Sukshma Sharira, which is the produce from Maya, Atma, this Brahman, which here in association with Sthula Sukshma Sharira is called Atma, but when it is associated, that term is Jiva. Now, Jiva, Ishvara is the duality that is experienced. That Jiva, Ishvara duality is going to be now addressed as through a question that can arise, that they cannot be the same. If you say that both are Brahman, because that is what is your conclusion to draw, you have to come to the point that Brahman is the soul, source and support of creation, is creation. Brahman itself is creation. So then how will you support this statement? So question they asked was, how is it possible that someone who believes a jiva thinks he is limited, a jiva thinks he doesn't know much, a jiva thinks that he's got capacities which are very, very finite, which are very, very hardly anything. That is why he experiences helplessness now and then, again and again. That helplessness feeling comes because jiva feels constrained from within. It is not an imagination. A jiva feels constrained from within to do more, to change a situation, to change things, to become better, to become more freer, etc. But jiva, despite all efforts, concludes that it can't do something more than what it is already doing, perhaps, or just is too limited by environment or by people around or situations and things like that. So the person is asking, means any doubt any person can ask, any doubt can arise in a thinking mind. How is it that someone who thinks himself to have egoism, ahankar, which is a part of chitta, antakaranam, when you think I am this individual of limited knowledge, how is this ever going to be reconciled to say nirankarasya sarvajnasya ishvaraha? Ishvara, who has no ahankar, has no subtle body in particular, is the total subtle bodies, all of them, is not limited by anything. Sarvajnasya is all knower because it is all total body, subtle body. That is called Ishvara. Then through the Mahavakya Tattvamasi, that Ishwar you are, how is it possible to remove the sense of Heda Buddhi that we find ourselves by default? Now, very often I say this in Vedanta class, it becomes very clear to us for some time. It's like removing the moss for some time over a stagnant lake on which a moss has got established. When you hear the words clearly, for some time the film is removed and you can see what it says. But the minute Vedanta class is out means you have established yourself in Ahankar, as in Jivatva Buddhi has resurfaced, and you're in association with the world and interactions. That is the place where we recognize the Bheda Buddhi. While the ideas are forming through the help of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, for that moment there seems to be no doubt. But the minute this ends and I am again in my own self of identity, and I have become the subject and the world has become an object of my perception, again a relation has got established because I have things to do, I have places to go, if I don't do this, I'm listening to things, I'm seeing things. So my sense of duality gets strengthened, gets firmer. That is the Bheda Buddhi that we live with, that we have by default. It is not an individual who has produced it. In fact, the Bheda Buddhi, as we saw in the previous aspect, previous prose portion, few statements back, he says, this Jiva Buddhi is because of Avidya Upadhi. That Avidya Upadhi which has arisen, the Bheda Buddhi, how is it possible to remove or draw ekatvam into such contradictory understandings? My own understanding. How do I see God? How do I see Ishwar? How do I see Bhagwan? Why do I pray? Why does anybody pray? Why does anybody have faith in Bhagwan? Why does somebody believe in God in any name? Jesus, Allah, Muhammad, anything. Why does anybody believe in some superior power? The idea of Bhagwan is a superior power. The idea of God is that he is somewhere who has more capacities than I as an individual have. Whose thinking is this? This is a very beautiful point to observe in one's own self. When I talk God, it is not somebody has taught me. I myself feel God is right there above somewhere, or maybe if I have a little bit of Vedic knowledge or Vedantic drishti, I say it is all pervasive. Bhagwan sab mein hai, kan kan mein basta hai, Bhagwan har cheez mein hai, isme bhi hai, usme bhi hai. But fact hai, that is a fact, that I still see Bhagwan as separate from me. That is why I can believe in something, that inward. I believe in something because that is separate from me. If it was not separate from me, if it was me, in fact, what am I going to believe in? How does the world change if even for a moment I think that Bhagwan I am? How will the perception change? How will the world drishti change? How is it? For most of us, it is a blasphemous statement. In most religions, it's blasphemy to say such a thing. That is why there is great pride, quote unquote. It's in a very restricted sense, the word. The more one recognizes the greatness of this vision, the more one feels overwhelmed by even the concept that there is an education possible where this Dvaitam is also dealt with. I'm going to repeat this because this is, to my mind, a very essential thing to pick up in one's own thinking. What do we believe? It's not that the book has told me there is Dvait. Book is only restating what I already experience. So if I'm only looking at my experience a little further, a little more observant I am of what I'm going through, then I myself know if in the morning I would pray. Why would I pray to Bhagwan? Why would I pray to anyone? Because I am holding the thought that they are separate. What are the Devtas? They are separate. What is Bhagwan? They are separate. What is Shiva, Vishnu, etc.? They are all kinds of, in Hinduism would have, they say, crores of Bhagwans. Why? Because I entertain that thought. I already find myself thinking that God is somewhere else, and if I examine it further, then in my understanding there is an unquestioning belief that this God is the superpower, is superior to everything. And if God is superior most, then He is certainly not helpless like I am. He is certainly someone from whom I can draw whatever I want, just as from an ocean, from a river, I can draw my pail of water. It's okay to draw my pail of water because it's a river. If I take out few pails of waters, it's okay. The river doesn't diminish itself. So my viruddha dharmas, in one part of me, the entire jivatvam establishes a dharma. Dharma here means a dharma in the sense of a buddhi, a bheda buddhi of viruddha dharmas. What are the viruddha dharmas? Bhagwan, Ishwar, Nirankarasya, Sarvagnyasya, Sarvavid, Sarvashakti, etc. is separate from me. And who am I? I am a jiva. I have limited capacity. I am alpagnaha. I know very little. I am born. I will die. I am changing. I don't know most of the times what is right and wrong. I don't know what to do, how to get, what to be. These are both, I'm repeating, these are both two threads, two sides of one thread. If Bhagwan is Sarvagnya, Sarvavid, I am Alpagnya, Alpavid. They are both actually one thread, two ends. Both are one thread. And if both are one thread, all Vedanta's saying is, catch the thread and remove everything else. It's your notion at the end of it that he stays separate. And unless and until I lend a reading to Bhagwan, my prayers are useless, because if I pray to a rock saying it is Ganesh, if I pray to a rock saying it is, and I will prove to my own belief, my own system of thinking, to my own system of faith, my prayer holds importance to me. It gives me the fruits, it gives me shanti, it gives me whatever I want. Ultimately, what is it? What is a shivaling? Ultimately, it is a very beautiful, natural formed, elliptical stone, naturally formed. But greatness is you are able to transport a sense of feeling, a sense of feeling, bhavana, on that with a whole lot of ideas in your mind. Shiva is an idea, Shiva is representing on that stone, and then Shiva represents this. All of that is so many thoughts together. One stone, that little elliptical stone. The buddhi I have these two ends of a common thread. I am the common thread. I think Bhagwan is separate. I think I am not knowing anything, Alpagnya, and I think Bhagwan is Sarvagnya, etc. This I, which is the common string, common thread, that I, Mahavakya resolves it to say that this Bhagwan and this Jiva, without their respective upadhis, arrive in your understanding, arrive in your vision, in our vision, that without upadhi, what are they? When you look at milk, if you look at milk, what all do you see in milk? What all is seen in milk?
You can think of a cow where the milk came from.
Yes, you can think of a cow,
Water,
water,
color, white.
color, excellent.
We can say curd is curd is also in milk. Butter is
Excellent. Excellent. You can see curd in milk. What else can you see?
butter.
Butter and milk. Very good. That excellent. This is what else can you see? When
Flow,
you see huh?
flowing liquid.
Flowing liquid, okay. Yes, ghee, you can see paneer, you can see cheese, you can see you are seeing milk in front of you. What is pratyaksh? Milk. But along with that milk, what else can be seen in it? That is already there. Yes. It is already there in it. That's why you can see it. With the idea of milk, you are seeing milk, but you can also see ghee there. You can also see butter there. You can also see paneer there. You can also see all these characteristics. Milk, it came from cow, and cow has milk. Excuse me, because it gave, it has, etc., etc. Now, you can see in that one thing something that is actually not there but is still there. What is, when you're seeing milk, curd is there but not there. There is a possible that this is becoming curd. There, if it becomes spoiled, is happening, you do nothing but just keep the milk out. Don't do anything about it. What happens? There is a possibility. There is no, not a possibility. Definitely it is going to undergo a change. And it will become something else. Where are you seeing all these that are going to be happening? In milk. Anything can happen. It is the source from where it comes to the last where it's consumed. And everything, the whole cycle between it, is now seen in that which in front of you is only milk. The whole Jagat that we see such varieties in. If the drishti or somehow says all this is in Brahman, how will it say that? How will you say that in milk there is curd, there is paneer, there is butter, there is whey, there is, I don't know
It's
what
all
else.
my imagination.
Is it imagination? Because if it's imagination, you can imagine anything. I can imagine in the milk, I can imagine.
I think if you are able to prove it, and you can prove it.
Which means absolutely. If it was just imagination, you could imagine anything in it. I can imagine a sheep in the milk, but the milk will not become sheep. But when will I see curd in milk? Is when I have knowledge that this milk can be curd, and curd is not separate from milk. Curd is also milk, milk is also curd. They're different forms. When I'm able to have the knowledge of what all it can be, so I see it from the drishti of the source that it can become, of what all. Same way, Brahman is whole creation. When I'm seeing it with Upadhi, what are the Upadhis here? All the Sthula Sukshma Sharira. When I see them with this, Brahman here in the example is the milk, and all name and form, everything that is possible, which includes, now that we have seen all the elements, so space is with time, so Kala, Desha, and all the other elements, all of these are a part of seeing that it is impossible for all of them to be if it is not for Brahman. When you can see it. That is why, as we say often, the rishis see it. How do we see? We know it. That knowledge to become a perception, that distance most of us don't carry through. For most of us, it stays in the sense of a clear knowledge, but it stays in the realm of Dvait. The world still remains outside. The world still remains separate from me. The world is still as real as this. I am still born and I am still going to. My Jivatva Buddhi is as intact, more informed now than before. Before I do Vedanta, I'm not so clear about who I am. After doing Vedanta, I do become very clear, and there is nothing wrong. Wonderful that is, that at least I have knowledge of myself from Shastra Drishti also now. That means my Jivatva Buddhi. Has it got corrected or has it actually added a layer of knowledge? Shastra says, if the knowledge is not diluting or addressing the Jiva Bhav, then you're still in Dvaitam. And that this person's, I'm just elaborating it a bit so that we understand the importance of this. If we just brush through it, we don't see the context from where this comes. And it is important to see the context. The context is us, our minds. In our mind, if the Jivatvam remains as is, and not only remains now, you have an added layer of information. And that added layer of information, has it strengthened my idea of duality or has it dented? I would say it first dents it. If you really get the meaning of it, it kind of somebody pulls the carpet under your feet and says, what are you talking? There is no difference. How do I relate to the world here afterwards then? Because if you and I are one, then where it becomes a bit confusing in the beginning, likely that I don't know how to do my Vyavhar, because Vyavhar is entirely in the Dvait realm. And my knowledge is now telling me there is no Dvait. So when there is Jiva Buddhi being addressed here through Mahavakya, it is actually addressing the Jiva Buddhi by giving it that information. And what is that information? Milk is curd, milk is etc. You are able to now see it. You can, till the time you see it, the reflection goes on. Till you don't see it, now I just have informative knowledge, but that informative knowledge is not transformative enough for me yet, or it is a bit transformative. Well, sometimes it takes time, doesn't matter. All those things are not essential at all. Here he says, these that are viruddha dharmas, if one has picked this much up, that they are my thoughts. Bhagavan is separate, I am separate. And they are two ends of a thread. For me, what is Mahavakya going to do? How is Mahavakya dissolving this absolutely viruddha dharmaha? That is what the person here, the doubt is, the question is. So he answers, if you think so, then no. That's not the right way. Mahavakya, knowledge of Mahavakya removes duality. It removes it from perception. While it removes it from perception, it doesn't mean that I become a zombie walker or I become a hazy person or I become, what all we all can imagine ourselves to be. It only means that no longer, just as in milk, you can see all of them, but yet you see milk as milk. You continue to see milk as milk. In the same way, with knowledge of Brahman, being yourself, when all the upadhis have got destroyed in thinking, the world will remain the world. You will contact the world as is, untouched. Untouched as in nothing changes outside. Your perception changed inside. So he says, Sthula Sukshma Sharira Abhimani was the Tvam Pada Vachya Artha. And we said in the last class, for Tat Tvam Asi, to understand this, which is the main theme of Vedantic knowledge, the Mahavakyas, it is not just Tattvamasi, there are many, many Mahavakyas in the Shastra. The main criteria of calling it a Mahavakya is where the Ishvara and knowledge of Ishvara is resolved with Jiva and the knowledge of Ekam. Whichever portion shows that, it becomes a Mahavakya. This said, the two types of sentences that are seen. The two types of sentences that we are seeing in Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. A sentence can be understood in its literal meaning, whatever it is saying. Literally you can take it, or a sentence can be said as Lakshyartha, means you're not to take it in the literal meaning. If you take it in the literal meaning, it will become extremely confusing. You have to take what it implies. The meaning has an implication, and that implied meaning is what is knowledge. Just as what you see in milk, there is an implication there that it can be seen as other things. You must have knowledge of what else it can be seen as. That Lakshyartha, Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. So the portion said, what is Vachyartha and what is Lakshyartha in Tvam-pada? In Tvam-pada, you. What is a Mahavakya? Tat Tvam Asi. Tvam is the you. Tat is Ishwar. Asi is R. Translation in English famous is that thou art. You are that. What is that? Somewhere people say it as Brahma. That's a real shortcut. In the Mahavakya, that is Ishvara, representation of Ishvara. And now you know what is Ishvara? Ishvara is with Maya Upadhi. So what is the Tvam Jiva with Avidya Upadhi associated with Sthula Sukshma Sharira? So he says, Tvam Pad. If you take it as Vachya Artha, Vachya means jo kaha gaya hai, as is. Vachya, what is said. If you take it as what is said in the literal sense, then it is Sthula Sharira Abhimani, Jiva. Yes. But if you take the Lakshyartha, what is this you in Tattvamasi? Tattvamasi is not Vachyartha but Lakshyartha. Tvam spoken here is Lakshyartha. And what is the Tvam Pada Lakshyartha? What is it indicative of? Upadhi Vinirmuktam. Freed of the Upadhi. When it is freed of the Upadhi of Sukshma Sthula Sharira and the Avidya Upadhi. When it is freed of the Avidya Upadhi. Then what is it? He says it is Samadhi Dasha. It is actually Samadhi here means pure knowledge. A state of only awareness, pure awareness. Shuddham, pure Chaitanyam, pure consciousness, pure awareness. So Tvam Pada Lakshyartham is pure awareness. Tvam Pada Vachyartham is Sthula Sukshma Sharira Abhimani. So when the Shastra is saying Tattvamasi and you take in your mind you to be this individual with a name and form, and in your idea of I is all this limited, all this sentence, how can I be same as Ishvara? Therefore, the meaning of you has to be discerned in oneself. What is I? Which aspect of I is being addressed in the Mahavakya? What aspect of me is addressed in Mahavakya? And that he says is the one which is Upadhi Vinirmuktam and is Shuddha Chaitanyam. And the same thing also with Tat Pada Vachyartham. What is Tattva Vachyartham? As Vachyartham, as is said, Tat is Ishvara. That Ishvara which is Sarvagnavat, Vishishta Ishvara, means it has all the qualities of Ishvara. That is what is indicated in the word that. Tat is Sarvagnatva Adi Vishishta. With all its Sarvagnya, Sarvavit, etc. qualifications, that is Ishvara. Tat Pada Vachyartha. So when there is a realm of prayers, when there is a realm of worship, when there is a realm of karma, what are we doing? We are keeping the Vachyarthas. The you is worshipping the Ishvara in whichever name call it. To us, it doesn't matter whether you call it Shiva or you call it Jesus or you call it Allah, you call it in any name. It is the same Brahman in a different name and form. When you think you are an individual who holds nothing, then Ishvara is the Vachyartha to whom you are now relating. But if this all goes in the realm of karma and upasana, and Shastra says, Vedantic, Advaita Shastra says, all this is mithya. That means even you, who is associated with Ishwar, is mithya. So how do you take them then? You take them in Lakshyartha. If you take them in Lakshyartha, what Tvampada Lakshyartha says and Tatpada Lakshyartha says, then Jiva Ishwarayoho Chaitanya Rupena. They are both Chaitanya Rupena. There is no Bheda. The Bhed has got abhava, has got negation. If in the understanding, I hope someone gets this statement clear now, if in one's understanding of who I am and who Ishvara is, Upadhi Vinirmuktaha, you can see it without Upadhi, then the Bhed is gone. The two ends of the thread are no longer two ends, but it is one string. That is what is implied in saying that Brahman is the truth, the only truth of all beings. Now, Lakshyartha in specific, last class someone had said, and I said I'll elaborate this a little more. This book doesn't address this, but in the Vedantic understanding, Lakshyartha is taken in a very specific meaning also. Lakshana, indicator, can be of three types. Means there is a Jahat Lakshana, there is an Ajahat Lakshana, and there is a Jahat Ajahat Lakshana, which is also called Bhagatyaga Lakshana. So what is Jahat Lakshana? In Jahat Lakshana, Jahat means you negate it, you completely give it up. What do you give up? The literal meaning of the sentence is completely given up. Completely. And only the implied meaning is taken. A sentence in which its real literal meaning, actual literal, I mean, as the words are. Whatever the words are conveying, the entire meaning is given up in understanding. What is that? And only the implied meaning is accepted. Like, for example, if you're talking about a third friend and you say, oh, she has just flown away. He just flew away. You tell me, what does it mean? It's just flown. He just flew away. What does the literal meaning mean?
He was actually flying.
Actually flying means the upadhi is of a bird. Just suddenly he developed wings and flew away. How should you be conversing now? Oh God, it just flew away. When will the whole idea in your mind is some. In fact, I have said this in the previous class also. Most of the communication, miscommunication. In fact, it's very easy to say 99.99% of miscommunication is because one person is not talking directly and the other person is taking the statement directly. So everything flows out of the window completely. There's miscommunication because the artha is completely mistrued. So Vedanta actually for 99.9% of the people is taken in the literal sense. And so there is no understanding at all. If anything, there is just more baggage added to the mind because there is no clarity. Now I have more information. I don't know who Bhagwan is and I know who I'm praying to. Why should I pray now? Because etc. etc. There is no vision of reconciliation. Jahat Lakshana means he just flew away. If you have to take the implied meaning, what does it mean?
He left in a rush.
He left in a rush, excellent. And?
Oh, he was really fast.
He's not in contact.
Okay, he's not in contact, or he's actually flown away in an aeroplane. He's just taken a flight. He's taken a flight and he's just gone out of country or out of state or something like that, you know. So what is implied now? Implied is that he's not here, he's gone, he's away. Means he's taken a flight and gone. He's not, etc. What is Ajahat Lakshana? Now, let me do this again. Is Tattvamasi Jahat Lakshana? Means you completely discard the actual meaning and you take the implied meaning. What is Ajahat Lakshana? In Ajahat Lakshana, the literal meaning is accepted also. And the implied meaning is also accepted. The literal, whatever the sentence is saying, that is also taken. And whatever it means, implied, is also taken. Like, for example, India wins. This was last Saturday's Sunday class ki tayari. At that time, of course, we were all looking at PV Sindhu to win. So this example came there. India wins. Now, what do we mean by India wins? If we take it literally, India has won. What is the implication? An athlete, a sportsman representing India wins for India. So you have taken an implied meaning and kept the actual meaning also. So the actual meaning, the direct meaning was India has won. It can have won a war, it could have won, but India has won. And what is the implied meaning? Such and such a person. It comes along with it in the context of where it has been said, because no statement is said without context. So in the context of that statement, now you know, if it just says PV Sindhu wins, then you know what is the implied meaning for India. If you say India wins, then what is the implied meaning? Sindhu's won or whoever's won. Now, this is Jahat Lakshana, not negated. Both of these are not what Tattvamasi is taken through. Tattvamasi is understood from Jahat Ajahat Lakshana. Jahat Ajahat Lakshana, they are the better meaning, Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana. What is Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana? Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana means one part of the sentence you take and one part of the sentence you discard. And what is it? Means you give one part of the direct meaning and consider one part of the implied meaning. Both. Now, in Tattvamasi, what are you doing? You take one part of it as a meaning and one part in that sentence. In the Tatpad, what are you taking? You are taking Brahman as the meaning and you are discarding away the Tatpad, which is Maya. You are discarding away the Maya Upadhi and you are taking the Brahman as the meaning. And in Tvampad, what are you doing? Upadhi Vinirata. You are removing the upadhi and you are taking the meaning which is implied in it. True bhaga tyaga means one part taken, one part given up. That giving up is the whole renunciation, is the entire portion of loosening the jivatva. You can't give it up. No, I can't just say, oh, the world doesn't exist for me. How can I say that? But when I'm hungry in another few hours, I'll know whether the world exists or not. Oh, I have no more ties and I have no more bondages. Yeah, the day you fall sick and you really fall sick, how much will you remember your members or your friends, close ones? That's the day you will realize how much you have actually given up your ties from your family. So the lot of delusion around spiritual life, and many people hold a lot of delusion around it because you understand that this is a giving up which is only internal freedom. It is not an externally you've cut off ties and things like that, etc. That may happen, which is incidental, but that is not because external cutting off is not the cause of your internal freedom. The cause of internal freedom is your internal separation of what is real and what is not real. The examples of these three in the traditional sense, which really conveys, I just gave some common floating example, but these are understood in the traditional meanings, and these examples have been coming on from ever, probably. Gangayam Ghoshaha. Gangayam Ghoshaha means the village is on Ganges. The village is the real meaning. The village is on the Ganges cannot be. So I'm cutting the entire part and you are just saying on the banks of Ganges. So it is, the statement will make no sense at all if you take it in the literal sense. It is untruth completely. But if you take the implied meaning is the banks of Ganges. The village is by the banks, on the banks of the Ganges. Then, yes, Gangayam Ghosha, because communication was and all these karaka can have these meanings. So this actually makes a lot more groundbreaking perception with the help of Sanskrit language, whoever knows it. Ajahat Lakshana, the traditional example given is Shonaha Dhavati. Shonaha means red. Oh, see there, red runs. Who's red? It implies the red runs. Red is taken to mean along with who is that red representing? What is that indirect implied meaning? Horse. Or in today's times, I think you can say those with red hair runs. And when you completely, there are people who make their hair red and pink. So, but Shonaha Dhavati would mean red horse runs. So the literal meaning red is kept, you're not discarding it. And you have also taken along with it the meaning of horse. In the Jahat Ajahat Lakshana, the example given is Soyam Devadattaha. Saha, and this is why Tattvam Asi is much more closer here in explanation. So, Saha Ayam Devadattaha. That Devadatta is this Devadatta. The one that you saw in that time and place, say 20 years back, the one I saw there, that person was that Devadatta there. Actually here, suddenly you meet a friend across after 20, 30 years, and suddenly, oh, ye to wahi hai, dur se when you see, I think it's the same person. Which means that you have discarded, the time and space you have discarded, and the common thing of the Devadatta you are carrying forward is the same. This goes into a lot more explanation, but we will not address that because this itself is complete to convey how Tattvam Asi, that Mahavakya, dissolves away, the knowledge of Mahavakya dissolves away one's perception of duality, which is the seed of samsara. And therefore, the text continues, the author continues, whoever sees this through Bhagatyaga Lakshana is able to discard away what is mithya and keeps holding what is satyam. What is satyam is that pure chaitanyam. When this person holds on to this as real, anchors with it, this knowledge that comes with Vedanta Vakyas that Brahman is Satyam, Jagat is Mithya, Evam cha Vedanta Vakyahi Satguru Rupadeshena Satguru Rupadeshena cha Sarveshu Api Bhuteshu Yesham Brahma Vidya Brahma Buddhihi Utpanna. All those Jivan Muktaha, they are Jivan Muktaha, in whom, that means whoever has been able to, all of them, Evamcha, in this manner, with the help of Vedanta Vakya, heard from a person who knows, who's enlightened and who has the vision of the knowledge, such a one also sees that this Brahman is the truth of all, Sarveshu Api Bhuteshu, is the truth of all the beings also. This sentence I still have to complete the translation. Brahma Buddhihi Utpanna. Now the buddhi is of Dvaitam, Jiva Buddhi, Ishvara Buddhi, separation. Through Vedanta Vakya and expositions, the word Sadguru is a little to be understood correctly now, otherwise it's now. The one who's an enlightened one, through that Brahma Buddhi Utpanna, who has the Brahma Buddhi now, such a one is a Jivan Muktaha, is the whole. And now he talks about the next realm, that if you don't get Brahma Buddhi in this Janma, then how have I fallen into the state of Jiva Buddhi, and what keeps the samsara alive? So with this portion, one whole section is again complete, and the next portion starts as how the cycle of karma, Jiva does the karma, and karma has a phal, and how that whole cycle of creation comes from whoever is got the Jivatva Bhav, and samsara is inseparable after that. Space and time have to be created, has to be there to experience your own karma phal. Therefore, the whole cycle of avidya and how avidya perpetuates karma with jivatva buddhi. This section is now going to get started. So I think we probably take it tomorrow, or maybe give it a little break so that we consolidate this portion separately. But I'll send a message in case there is no class tomorrow. As of now, we are having a class tomorrow. But what I want to convey is this section of Jivan Mukta, who is an enlightened being, and how is the enlightenment possible, and there is nothing else to be done for it. There is no karma, there is no upasana, there is no worship, there is no meditation, there is nothing that can help enlightenment. There is only the knowledge of Advait. I am non-separate. Only that knowledge is the cause of, if you can call it the cause, of enlightenment. For the simple reason, the premise is that your thinking that you are bound itself is false. It's mithya. You are seeing a snake. where there is none. So only the knowledge of rope can eliminate the vision of snake. So if you see yourself as a jiva, it is only the knowledge of you being Brahman that can eliminate the knowledge of you being jiva. No karma can eliminate it. No meditation will eliminate. No upasana will eliminate. Then why do we do them? When we come to the topic of karma, we will address that over there. But for now, the clarity should be extreme clarity of this idea, because Vedanta centers around it. And this is extremely liberating to the one who gets this. What is the idea? That knowledge, Atmagyan, is the only cause of liberation. The only कारण of liberation. मुक्ति का एक ही कारण है, मुक्ति का एक ही मार्ग है, मुक्ति एक ही चीज से है, अज्ञान निवृत्ति से. Because the truth is, mukt, you are already mukt. It is non-recognition of that I am calling myself as something else. So as long as this wrong thinking of mine is not corrected, I remain bound. I remain thinking I am this jiva. So with this, we will end the class. Yes. Malini?
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्ति भवतु, सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु, सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु, सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महिषा, गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं, लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु, काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः, पृथ्वी सस्यशालिनी, देशोऽयं शोभरहितः, ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you, everyone.